Okay, welcome everyone. Today's class number 5 in our series. Every class is a separate unit, but each class builds on the premises of the other classes. And the main idea that all the classes build on is that our thoughts create our present moment. And the thoughts that we think are going to build our self-image, are going to create positive emotions or negative emotions. And today's classes are midos development, character development. Our midos, the Hebrew midah is the Hebrew word for our character trait. Literally the word midah means measure, and no trait is totally positive, and no trait is totally negative. Every trait has its time and place and its amount. So whether a trait is positive or negative, some are usually positive, some are usually negative, but its context plays a major role. And where does midos, character traits, play a role in Judaism? The Vilna Gaon's famous quote is that our purpose of life is to overcome our negative tendencies, our negative patterns, negative traits. Otherwise, what is life for? So it's not a minor thing, but it's rather our totality of who we are and how we interact with other people are our traits. And traits can really be in two categories, positive and negative. Rambam, Maimonides, when he talks about midos development, character traits, he puts this in the second section. He divides all the laws of Judaism, all the laws of Torah into 83 categories. And the first category is Yesodei Torah, the foundations of Torah, loving God, appreciating God. Right away, number 2, before any laws, monetary matters or anything, but holidays and any other aspects, Rambam has a section he calls Hilchos Deos. Deos is the same as midos, character traits. So it deals with the total Torah consciousness of developing our positive traits. Now the Rambam's first statement in this section, he says, Deos har b'yesh b'nei adam. People have very many different traits, and people are very different. And he gives examples. Some people get very angry very easily. Some people rarely get angry. Some people are very kind and generous. Some people are very stingy. Some people are very joyful. Some people are very sad. And that's it. Basically, he just says people are different. Now, the Rambam is a book of law. It's not a book of observations, social observations, but it's a book of law. It doesn't seem like he's telling us a law over here. It just says people are different. And I always look at it like this. In other areas of Judaism, let's say, eating matzah on Passover. Same mitzvah for everybody. Matzah, flour, water, matzah, same mitzvah for everybody. Shofar and Rosh Hashanah, we blow the shofar, same mitzvah for everybody. When it comes to character development, no two people are the same. We all are unique, we're all individuals. Same way we all have unique fingerprints, we have unique traits. And so therefore, what one person needs could be totally opposite of another person. For instance, one person might have a low self-image, feeling down about himself. And he needs to build up his positive sense of self. He needs to build up a certain self-confidence and courage. Another person is very arrogant and conceited. He needs a little more humility, a little balance. So what one person needs is going to be different than somebody else. So we all have our unique challenges in life to help us grow. And a thought expressed by Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, he's a Kabbalist. He wrote his major work, Mesilat Yesharim, Path of the Just, he wrote in 1740. And he says that Kol Inyoni Olam Nisyonos Hein Ladam. Everything in life is a challenge. Now, first of all, here we heard a telephone going off, which is wonderful. But every time you hear a telephone ringing, that's another opportunity to keep growing in gratitude. And every time you hear a telephone ring, say, I am grateful, I'm alive, and I can hear. Right? I thank Hashem Yisbarach, I thank Creator, that gives me, I'm alive, I have life, I can hear. So Now, I've met people who get really annoyed if they're talking and somebody's telephone rings, but when you get in the habit of saying, oh, that's a reminder, I'm grateful, a reminder of a lot to be grateful for, life and hearing, so it upgrades your traits. And now there's that important thought of reframing, that how we look at anything is the way it's going to affect us. We'll deal with this tomorrow when we go elaborate on the trait of anger. And we have a class called Anger Dinner Teacher based on my book with that name. But that's one trait. But here we're dealing with traits in general.
I guess you can use that for, like, if let's say someone's cursing you out or something, you could be like, thank God I can hear. And like, then, you know, instead of getting upset or fighting with them, which is going to be pointless anyway, probably, you just think in your head.
Terrific. So, right, but you said it's very valuable, because every situation, of course, we want people to like us, we want to get along with people, and that's why there's Torah commandments and how we should speak. We should not insult people, not hurt people's feelings. However, it's always based on subjectively, how do I personally take what this person said or did? And
it's almost like when he's cursing you out, it's like he's telling you can hear, man.
Okay. So, yeah, and one big challenge is also the class number 3 in the series was Torah attitudes to other people, and we spoke about the Torah commandment, love your neighbors yourself, and also we have to have mutual respect, respecting other people. And that's also, so every life situation is an opportunity to help us grow in our character traits. Sometimes we act the way we wish to act, and sometimes we see that, I really need to improve. So now the Rambam, before he tells us how do we develop positive traits, he says, where do we get our traits? And it's fascinating that the Rambam writes about in Psychology Today that basically the position of the Rambam is still considered the main idea, that nature and nurture. Some traits we're born with. Today we'd say it's our genetic makeup, it's in our DNA. And some traits we pick up from environment. Says the Rambam, no matter whether we are born with a trait or we picked it up from others, we picked it up from watching people's patterns, we can do something about it now. So this idea, we're not stuck with our traits, but rather we have free will choice at any given moment how we think, how we speak and act. Because what are traits? Our traits are patterns of our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. So there's 4 things. Thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Those are our traits. So the Rambam says, though, how do you develop a positive trait? Think about what actions you need to take. For instance, a person wants to be kind and generous. So you need to be kind and generous, do many actions of kindness and generosity. You want to be grateful. You want to have courage. Do many acts of courage. By taking actions and doing over and over again, you develop that trait. Then the Rambam talks about, in the 2nd chapter of Hilchos Deos, this chapter dealing with character traits, the Rambam talks about what if we have a fault. So it says normally we need to have a wise balance. The Rambam said we should do the middle way. However, if we have a fault, we should go in the opposite positive direction for a while till we have acted in the positive way over and over again, then we can be more balanced. Then we shouldn't be extreme. The goal is wise balance. Those words are very important because sometimes a person asks, well, if a person's always like this or always like that, won't that cause problems? And usually the answer, whoever asks the question, is usually thinking about something that is right. If a person acts too extreme in ways, it's going to be a fault. It'll come out counterproductive. Therefore, we need a wise balance. And I always ask people to repeat. Let's repeat. What do we keep needing? Wise balance. Everybody together. Wise balance. Wise balance. Wise balance. That's so important. What wise balance means depends on what person's life is still, like what's happening.
Well, like I just, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not asking too many questions, but like I remember I used to know someone like who was like a very relaxed guy. Like everything he would do like slow and just like relaxed. Like I always like I was younger. I was like very worried. Like just like I was always worried about things. Always like frigid and like I was like thinking to myself maybe I should be like that. And like what made me not want to be like that. I was like, that's not me, so maybe I'm just fooling myself and trying to be something I'm not, or maybe I'm not. Maybe it really could be something.
Yeah. You touched on a very important question. What is the real me? And very hard to know the real us. Simple reason, we all grow up, let's say we were a little infant, we don't speak yet, we don't act yet, and we grow up in an environment. So we have a mixture, we all have genes, but we also grow up in an environment. And we pick up traits. Now, Rambam says that the nature of human being is to be influenced by our environment. Therefore, we should choose a positive environment because we're all going to be influenced. And the question is really how much we're going to be influenced. Very fascinating. There's a famous study that Zimbardo did in Stanford. They had people, volunteers, to be, some people play the role of prisoners and some prison guards. And so Zimbardo claimed that no matter what a person was beforehand, environment can transform a person tremendously. Other people challenged him that he took it too extreme, but we are influenced by our environment. What's considered standard, what's not considered standard, but our inner sense of self and how we ideally feel we want to be and are. And because that's a question also, what can motivate us to keep improving? So before we go into that, so we have some from the Rambam, how do we develop a positive trait? Keep speaking and acting consistently with the positive trait, and when you do it over and over again, you're creating yourself. With the idea of neural pathways, when Torah started those 40 years ago, the idea of neuroplasticity, the fact that you can really change your brain, like when I was growing up as a kid, they thought children's brain's plastic. You keep changing and developing. Once you get a certain age, you pretty much stay the same. And now they know there's neuroplasticity at any age, no matter whether a person's 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, as long as a person's basically functional, then you can keep actually changing the structure of your brain through what you read, what you say, what you do.
Does that mean the brain's still developing?
Yes, that's exactly what it means. And when I was a kid, they didn't know that. I mean, like 60 years ago, and I was a little boy.
On my psychology panel. This year.
Okay, so since this year is 2014, there's neuroplasticity. So it matters whoever wrote that in a test, what year the test was written, and how advanced the person's knowledge of the present knowledge.
When did this neuroplasticity till
within the last 20 years.
Oh, wow.
The last 20 years. And when a new idea comes along, first of all, it's like, okay, is that total reality? But today it's considered standard. Standard, yeah. That and they actually show videos of the brain when you think a new thought for the first time or take an action for the first time. There's a neural pathway to that thought or to that action. If you repeat it over and over again, then it becomes hardwired and it becomes part of you. And that's the idea of talent. That a lot of things that people look at, you have a natural talent, but how we practice plays a big role. So when it comes to character traits, midos, Rambam wrote many years ago that we developed our traits, and that's totally, today, that's considered the basic reality of us human beings. I remember once we had over here, there's a fellow who came to Eshet Torah. This was before the first Gulf War. And the fellow came into a few classes, and afterwards he came over to me and said, you know what, there's a young lady I'd very much like to marry. Can you do me a favor, talk her into marrying me? I didn't know him, he just came by a couple days, and I said, I'm not going to talk anybody into marrying anybody, but if you want, I'll call up in your name and ask, just get feedback what this person's thoughts about you are, because you said you want to marry her, and he told me over it. They know they're friends for a couple of years, and he really wants to marry her, but she said she doesn't want to marry him. So he said, I'll do a fact-finding mission. If there's something you can do to improve or something you can change, then she would consider marrying you. If you give me permission to do that, that's what you want, I'm happy to do it. Otherwise, find somebody else. He says, I can't find anybody else to do it, so, okay. I called up. I said, I'm not trying to talk you into anything. This fellow came by, Yeshiva Torah, come to a couple classes. What are your issues with this fellow? And she said, he's very impulsive. I can't see myself being married to somebody who's so impulsive. So what's the opposite of impulsive? Being patient. So if he learns to be patient, would you consider marrying him? Oh, if he'd be patient, I would, yeah, very much. I like him a lot, just that I can't be married to somebody so impulsive. But if he's patient, that'd be terrific. So the next day, come back and said, bad news. And the good news is she still doesn't want to marry you, but the good news is she said that her issue with you is that you're impulsive. She said, she's right, I am very impulsive. But if you learn to be patient, she consider marrying you. He says, terrific, how do I become patient? I said, that's exactly what you need to do. Ask when you want a trait to become integrated and internalized, ask, how do I do it? So I told them over, there was a statement in the Talmud. Talmud tells a story about a great teacher. His teacher was Rabbi Preda. And he had a student who was a little slow, and Rabbi Preda had to repeat every idea 400 times. So Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz, the late head of Mir Yeshiva, used to ask on this, why didn't Rabbi Preda get himself a student who was a little quicker, that wouldn't have to repeat it so many times? So he said, Rabbi Preda himself was working on developing his quality of patience. So he looked at every repetition as another opportunity to develop more patience. So he didn't look, I'm wasting my time repeating this 400 times. I am becoming a more patient person. So the fellow said, terrific, okay, now I know how to be patient. Call her up and tell her I'm patient. I said, are you serious or joking? He said, I'm serious. You told me how to be patient. I said, if you think you can learn to be patient just by hearing one idea one time without, if you wait 24 hours, you say, I've been patient for a whole 24 hours. Call her up and tell her I'm patient. Okay, at least 24 hours you're patient. That one day being patient is not sufficient. But thinking you hear an idea and you've integrated and made it part of you, it doesn't work like that. You have to actually put it into action. You have to actually act that way.
So how does a person, I always wonder these things, how you grow in character traits, you just act it out?
Not just, you do it over and over and over again.
You'll eventually develop it?
Eventually, yes. A positive trait that you keep speaking and act that way. Now the Rambam gives example. Let's say a person's very stingy. So very stingy, he doesn't like giving, and doesn't like sharing with others. So take some, let's say, he didn't use dollars, of course, but let's say take a $100 bill and divide it up into 100 singles and keep giving out one by one to 100 people. This way you keep building up the trait. So find ways that you can keep acting in that trait. Now, there's another way, without actually acting that way, visualize yourself using the power of imagery to see yourself being the way you wish to be. If you speak and act the way you wish to be, so even if you do it in your mind, it'll be powerful, but it's really a work if you do both. I mean, visualize it and keep acting that way, because we're always in the present, and in the present we have choice how we think, speak, and act. But we have the ability to visualize ourselves in the future, being in the acting, speaking and acting consistent with this new trait. Also, we have the ability of seeing ourselves retroactively in the past, speaking and acting that way. So even if you, let's say hundreds of times you acted a certain way, which is now you realize that's not good, and I really want to speak and act much better, right now, see yourself in the past speaking and acting in ways that are consistent with this higher way of being. And it takes practice, and we do it over and over again. So it's much easier on the practical level for most people to actually act it out. How do we know what traits to develop? That's why number 35 of the 48 tools, the Rashiva, the head of Yeshiva Torah of Noach Weinberg, of blessed memory, gave a series of classes, the 48 ways, available in recordings. Number 35 is loving criticism. Now, how many people really love criticism? You imagine somebody saying, Joe's such a great guy. It's always good to be around Joe because wherever you say or do, he'll always find fault. He'll always criticize you. It's so wonderful being around him. I don't know anybody that really going to say that. Most people really are the same thing. We don't like criticism. We love criticism. So if you use the word feedback, I love feedback. Now, Reb Noach Weinberg, of blessed memory, used to give the following example. Let's say a person wants to run for president, prime minister, and there's debates. So he needs to practice his debating skills and get to coach. So when the coach points something out, how he can improve his delivery, how he can improve the way he speaks and acts, he's going to be happy for that. Moreover, let's say you have a wallet and you just got a large sum of money and the wallet slipped out of your pocket. And somebody says, hey, stupid idiot, you dropped your wallet. You're going to say, you call me a stupid idiot? I'm not picking the wallet up. Just keep walking away. Nobody's going to do that. You say, oh, thank you so much. Even if you don't like the way he pointed it out to you, of course we want people to point out respectfully. But if somebody doesn't, we still listen to him because we realize I'm going to lose my wallet. My credit cards, anything I have in my wallet. Similarly, he says, let's say you're driving, the back door of the car is open. Somebody says, hey, you weren't careful, you kept the back door open. You're going to stop the car. You're not going to say, I don't like the way you said that to me, I'm going to keep driving. You stop, because when you really want something and you realize that listening to what this person is telling you is going to enhance your life, so you appreciate what the person said and you take it seriously and act considerate. So the idea of being open to feedback from others.
It's very interesting. Even though they're screaming at you, it's still like, thanks, man. Like, whoa.
Right, because you know that it's good. And for instance, if you have some of the best coaches, they don't have to be, especially some football coaches who are really tough. Some weren't, but the Lombardi Trophy, Lombardi, he would scream at his players tremendously. A lot of the players in Green Bay that said that they were just afraid of Lombardi screaming at them, and these are professionals and they get paid for it, but still they felt, I don't want him screaming at me and I better do as good as I can possibly do. But that's not the way. Really, there's a verse, Yesh baita k'mitkaras cher. Some people speak, it's like a sword. They speak harshly. The lashon chachami marpe, the words of the wise heal. So when we speak to other people, pointing something out, we should do it in a way that's healing, in a way that's kind-hearted. And when a person sees, hey, you mean for their benefit, most people will be grateful. And again, depends on context, the situation. I remember there was a fellow that visited here, and he would always notice, like in stores, what was wrong with the way the store was set up or the store window. So he would always think of ideas. So I saw him a lot. I was walking down Jaffa Road, and he would stop in a few stores. He would go over to the owner's store. You know what you have in the window, this and this. You'd be so much better off doing it like this. Hardly anybody took him seriously. And to pay somebody with his expertise, because he had a very good eye and he knew what he was talking about, but most people found him very annoying. And so but on the receiving end, though, the goal is to be able to, if you want to grow and develop, to appreciate it. Or at least another way to learn to grow is reading biographies of great people. When we read biographies of great people, we see how they spoke, how they acted, because nobody can be exactly like anybody else. We all should be ourselves. Each of us is unique. However, we can learn from everyone. Ezu chacham, who's wise, Aloi made mikol adam, learning from every single person. So every time we see a person with a positive trait, we can learn from it. Moreover, when we see a fault in another person, usually we're going to have some aspect of that fault. We do find the sages say, kol posel b'muma posel. If a person finds fault with others, they'll usually find fault with themselves. Things that are in themselves, that's what they're going to see faulty in another person. So if you see something that bothers you in another person, says, in what way do I have this pattern? And sometimes a person will say, oh, I don't have this negative pattern. You won't have it the exact same way this person has it, but you'll have it in some way. So we need to keep learning from everyone and learn positive things and positive traits from other people, and learn what to avoid, learn what to not do. When we think of traits, it's really worthwhile going down the alphabetical order, A, B, C, D. Each letter has traits, and then you can think of qualities, different qualities. And the point is, seeing positive traits in other people helps you respect other people more, helps you like other people more. And so see what traits do you respect, what traits do you appreciate, and even what traits would you like? Let's say if you could choose any positive traits, what positive traits would you choose to make part of you? And that way you can keep building up. These are some traits I feel real important for me. That's what you want to keep developing and integrating. So the idea of midos development, character development, is a major topic, and it's relevant all the time, and we have to keep growing. It's like, when do you finish the job of developing your midos? You never finish. So some people say, I never finish, and what's the use of starting? And that's why the sages say, Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers, Lo alechem lachalingmer. You can't complete all the things we can do to do in this world. You're not going to complete it. V'yato ben chora lebatam mena. But you're not a free agent to say, because I'm not going to complete it, I won't be perfect, I'm not even going to try. Don't aim for perfection, aim for progress. And then we say, joy for progress, joy for progress, joy for progress, that we should feel joy for every little bit of improvement in every way. And otherwise the person can be discouraged, can be overwhelmed. There's so much to do and so much to take care of. Keep focusing on how you can grow and improve.